Okay, well, what's next on the agenda? Oh, Uganda. I guess we can talk about that. Uh, a lot of people have been talking about in the media and the blog sphere that the anti-homosexuality bill, which supposedly, according to reports, the anti-homosexuality bill has had the death penalty clause taken out of the bill. It's been amended. But we have another problem, is that I think that the reports are incorrect. I don't know why they're incorrect. I don't know. It's the BBC that is sort of spinning all of this shit. And you're going to have to ask yourself why the BBC is trying to do this. Well, for various reasons. I don't know. But the British, let me just say something. Do you think that it was only these American evangelicals? The thing is, we cannot just empower these maniacs, these evangelicals like Scott Lively and Paul Cameron and all these other frosty flakes, to be able to actually ascertain any kind of power over a country's politics. First of all, if I'm a Ugandan, and if that is the case that some wacky, fruity, loony, evangelical pastor from Alabama or from Texas or from Oklahoma or some stupid senator from America has come to my country and told me how I should run my country and what bills and what laws we should enact, then that's the real imperialism there. And when we discuss this issue, these Ugandans always say, like, you gay people are trying to impose on us, it's imperialism, Obama and everybody else, the European Union. But the reality is that all this homophobia since the 30s has been mostly imported. If you look at all the traditional myths, I don't know if you call them myths, but the traditional oral stories, oral, sorry, oral as in mouth to mouth, not cock to mouth, but all these oral traditions that the African tribes of the many nations in Africa, they've always accepted homosexuality. It's been part of their culture for hundreds, if not thousands of years. Not just in Africa, but in China and Latin America and the Aztecs and Mayans and the Native Americans up in Canada, here in the US, even in parts of Europe where the Vatican had little bit of, not that much control. And in India, you have all these, transsexuals and transgenders and two-spirit people, and you have that in Thailand and South Asia. I don't know why there's such a big deal about this. And they're saying that we're trying to uphold traditional values. No. I mean, if you look at human history, let's just say that human history is 100,000 years old, which is, I think, personally, is not. I think it's way ancient, our human history. But let's just say for 100,000 years, we've had humans existed on this planet. That's according to Richard Dawkins, the atheist professor, and other scientists. Let's just say that's true. But for the last 2,000 years of those 100,000 years, humans have experimented with something called religious conservatism, whether it be in Judaism, whether it would be in Christianity, or in Islam. And Islam wasn't actually a hardcore, reactionary, racist, homophobic religion. No, it wasn't like that before, but later on it became reactionary. And then Christianity, well, the first Christian, who was Jesus Christ, according to my own accounts and the way that I read things, obviously, I don't think Jesus Christ was a reactionary. If Jesus Christ was here today, he would have laughed at these stupid Ugandans and at these stupid Republican reactionaries who helped them draft that bill. So for the last 2,000 years, we've had this reactionary, right-wing, totalitarian, religious, pseudo-religious imposition on human individuality. I mean, that's what we've had so far. And for Christians to come out and say, oh, wait, you're imposing on us because you're gay. You know, what? That doesn't make any sense. Because throughout the centuries, Christianity, the church, I'll just say that, the church, which is the Vatican, the church has been the one, is still to this day, imposing on gay people. So don't try to play the victim here. Unless you can prove that there are squads of gay people out there killing and arresting, persecuting Christians and Muslims or something like that, then I'll believe you. But in reality, it's the other way around. We have gay people in Uganda and many parts of Africa being persecuted not by atheists, although atheists have done that in the past, I'll just say that, but I mean, I'm not saying that all atheists are perfect. And atheists themselves know this, so I'm not going to preach this, but Christians and Muslims and even to some extent Jewish sects all around the Middle East are persecuting gay people. And now they have the audacity to come to the West, to Europe, at least to Western Europe, to Canada, to the US, and to Mexico, and to other parts of the world, and say, oh no, they're the ones that are being persecuted, when in reality, that is not the case. You know, that's what I really hate about these people. You know, they're the real, we are the real victims here because, our fascist, homophobic, reactionary philosophy is being rejected. I guess that means that if you are against racism, you are persecuting racists, you are intolerant of racism. That makes you a bigot. Okay. I guess that's the new talk. And you have to look at this because this is really playing at heart at what's going on in Uganda. Uganda is saying that they're the victims, even though they never provide the evidence. And I know of a couple of people who are ready and willing to spend money on this and go to Uganda and film the supposed atrocities of a gay king. First of all, the king wasn't gay, but they're saying that there was this Ugandan king who raped and sodomized all these poor Ugandans and these gay boys or straight boys, whatever. And he was malicious. If that is the case, why don't you also arrest black people? Because not only was he a homosexual, he was also a black person. Or how about going after men because he was a man? Or how about, there's certain characteristics of the person who did this, if that is to be believed, that we can go after other people with. It's stupid to say, well, there was a gay king about 30 years ago, I don't know how many, it was 50 years ago, because I'm not that familiar with the history of Uganda, but a king, as far as I know, existed years ago. I think it was decades ago that this king was reigning in Uganda. He was a dictator, and supposedly he was also a flaming homosexual. And not only that, but he was raping all these men. And I always ask myself, well, that's pretty interesting, and it's It's really maddening. It's horrific that we have something like that actually happened to these men. And if it happened, then we need to know about it. You know, we should have a BBC reporter or somebody like that go out there and film all this and say, look, these are the victims that were, I mean, some of those victims are still alive, I suppose. They can say, look, the king came out and he had a boner and he inserted it into my asshole, and I have no, you know, I had no power over that. You know, I had to submit to the king. You know, it's the fucking king, you know. But you also had these weird people going to Uganda. You know, the C Street Christians, the family that was portrayed on Rachel Maddow's show. Well, what Rachel Maddow forgot to mention, and Charlotte, the guy who wrote a book about this, is that, and he was on the show, but he forgot, and Rachel Maddow forgot to mention, is that C Street is mainly, yes, a Christian organization, but it's also a Freemasonic order. It's a secret society. And if you have listened to this show, if you listen to Jose Soto, you know that I am very curious to study secret societies and these esoteric groups. And a lot of these groups have almost the same rituals and the same beliefs, charters, whatever you want to call it. They are just really weird. And they believe in a lot of weird things. And, you know, these esoteric groups go back to medieval England and all that, and Scotland. And what I've been told about the C Street gang, the family, is that they are heavily involved in Freemasonic, Freemasonry, or Scottish Freemasonry, and that's part of their theology. And that's why they are very secretive about what they are doing. Because if all these evangelicals found out about their, you know, their bi-curious ways into these other things, these other esoteric rituals, you know, there's evangelicals who vote Republican are going to be like, you know, whoa, we're voting for these pagan men, so they're going to get their heads chopped off. I mean, figuratively speaking, or politically speaking. But these were the players behind the anti-gay, anti-homosexuality bill that wants to execute gays. And as far as what I know, is that the president of Uganda is fed up with this shit. And I don't blame him. I mean, he's, you know, I mean, I don't want to side with the dictator here, but he's also fed up with this, because who's bringing this up? It's his government, and a lot of people under him that really want to use this. Well, they want to use this bill, this law, to attack their opponents and to throw them in jail for the rest of their lives. You know, they want to. You know, that's what they were. You know, that was their extra prize that they got with this bill, and they were able to do that if they got it passed. But, you know, all they had to do was accuse some people of being gay, and off to jail they go. I don't know why Christians will support that. And Scott Lively, who's running for governor in Massachusetts, by the way, you know, this stupid, mediocre, but not mediocre, but I mean, he's very influential in these areas. Mediocre but stupid, yes, but very influential. And it just says to you what happens when countries like Uganda go very rogue and they fall through the cracks. They basically enthrone a dictator into power. You know how Obama talks about all this, we have to end dictators and we have to stop these evil people who are trying to take control of governments and all these countries. We took down Gaddafi, took down Mubarak in Egypt, and now we're going after Bashar Assad in Syria. So why don't we go after this guy? I mean, this guy has been a dictator, so-called president, for what, like 30 years now. Oh, but he's fine. He's a good dictator though, even though half his country is starving to death, and Uganda is still getting plenty of aid from us, right? So we got a report here, and we linked it up on the gayreport.net, the best news website in the whole wide world. And the first link, the main link on the Gay Report is U.S. Embassy Uganda bill has not passed committee. There were previous reports that it has passed the committee. Now Parliament, the whole House, is going to consider it. But now the death penalty remains. There were other reports. The BBC, again, the British, were telling us, everybody, that, oh no, don't worry about it. Nothing to see here. The death penalty has been removed, and that's not the case. The U.S. Embassy has now reported just today that the death penalty shall remain. Now, who's behind this? You might be asking, oh, it's the Parliament? Yes, because a lot of these people like David Bahati, these useful little muppets, are saying to themselves, well, I don't give a shit about gay people, these stupid faggots. I don't care about them. I care about me. I care about, first of all, looking like I'm very pro-family, pro-children. I'm becoming more popular. That's what he is thinking to himself. And not only that, I can use this law against my enemies. I mean, that's what he's saying. That's what all these politicians, these crooked, these corrupt, evil, demonic little, I don't know what they are, these little gargoyles in Uganda, who are salivating for this bill to pass because they want it to pass, because then they're going to use it to attack their opposers and throw them in jail. That's what they're planning to do. And that's their thing. That's why they wanted to pass. It's not to protect children from gays, or like if that's really the case. Gay people have existed in Uganda since its inception, I'm guessing. And I haven't heard anything or reports except for this rumor about this gay king that existed there, supposedly. And the religious right is saying, look, please be understanding of Uganda. They had a homosexual king who was raping boys and all that. Well, if that is the case, why don't you execute the king then? Why does every other gay person have to pay for the hideous crimes of another gay person? I mean, that doesn't make any sense. It's like saying, well, a couple black people here killed some innocent people. I guess we have to kill all the blacks. Do you think that will fly in any country? No, the UN will come down on your ass and you'll be sanctioned, and you have all these things happening to a country who will be doing this. I mean, look what happened to South Africa. During apartheid, when they were separating and segregating people based on their race. What's happened is that, the UN came down and they pressured that country. And a lot of black people would say, well, that was good. All these Africans, these black Africans, they were happy when that came down. But I guess, and that happened through international pressure, the European countries, the United States, Latin America, even China, I think, and Russia. I mean, everybody was like, building, well, I don't think it was China though, or Russia. I don't think it was either of them. They don't care about human rights. They were trading with South Africa. But other countries were, most of the countries on this planet were against South Africa, and through international pressure, South Africa caved in and finally allowed the integration of their population. And of course, you can say that is imperialism. You may label that as you wish. You may label the process as horrific as you can, but the outcome was what we should value. Or do you want racism to be accepted? I mean, it's just the way that it has to be acknowledged. You cannot say, well, the fact that there's international pressure against Uganda because Uganda is trying to execute gays, well, that's wrong. But the international pressure against South Africa for the policy of apartheid, oh, that was correct. That was perfect. No, no, no. You look back to what happened with South Africa. There were a lot of people in South Africa, a lot of white people. Even blacks were, so there were a few racist blacks who didn't want to integrate with the whites. And people assume, that it's only the whites that wanted apartheid. There were some few blacks there. I remember my history. Just like in America today, we have a lot of blacks who are racist, who call white people crackers and all that, and their face. But in South Africa, there were blacks in there who did not want to integrate, and they were calling the pressures on South Africa, the international pressure, they were calling it imperialism and wrong and immoral. But look, the policy of opposing racism, dictatorship, xenophobia, it's really helpful. And a lot of people now applaud it within South Africa and outside South Africa. They are applauding that. So I don't know what the problem is that now we're saying, look, you cannot execute gay people. In fact, I think we should go further than that and say, wait a minute, you cannot throw gay people in jail. That's stupid. Not only is it stupid, it's a violation of human rights. And I'm not going to go into why, or I'm just saying that it is. Just like saying that we should execute or throw in jail all these Christians or Muslims. I mean, that's going on too in many other countries that are persecuting Christians. And the Catholic Church is, of course they are all over that. They're calling for intervention and they're calling for sanctions against countries like Iran, and because supposedly they are persecuting Christians, and Pakistan, and yeah, but that is imperialism, and all the Christians who are yelling and screaming in Uganda are also yelling and screaming for the Vatican and for other countries to intervene in Pakistan and Iran to stop the persecution of Christians. But yet, when we say, okay, fine, and I agree, of course, no person should be persecuted for their religious beliefs, because that's part of their human rights. Just like nobody should be persecuted or executed or thrown in jail for being gay. I mean, it's the same logic. But these people don't know logic. And it's kind of funny that the British, I mean, I'm not talking about David Cameron. I mean, David Cameron is the Prime Minister of England. The British, the English pretty much have lost a lot of power to these other devolved governments like the Wales and Scotland. Scotland now wants to secede, and Northern Ireland. What's going on is that the British are no longer going to be a nation state. They're going to be broken up into several pieces, and that's how the globalist, these elitist, that's how they want it, because they can control these countries better. And Uganda, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to cut off the north, separate the country probably into 3 parts. And the anti-homosexuality bill plays well into this, because the British and the Europeans and Americans, the Anglo-American influence, can say, look, and NATO, of course, They can say, look, we take the northern part, which I think that they're trying to do that. China can take the other part. And they have that kind of influence. And they can say, because, on the northern part of Uganda, we have no anti-homosexuality bill, we have human rights, etc. I mean, the U.S. and the British, well, the British are using the Americans, that's what it is. They're going to use this controversy to their own advantage. And that's what we are going to see. I mean, trust me. I mean, I study these two governments and how they interact in Africa and how they, and in the Middle East especially. And what's going on in Uganda, I mean, it's a lot of shit going on in that country. It's not just the anti-homosexuality bill, but it is important. Yes, we have to stop it for the sake of sanity. Bring this country back from the brink. But I don't know how we can achieve that. The State Department has said, well, this is what they said. They said that they are aware of it. They have sent an envoy, a U.S. envoy, to talk to the president, Museveni, of Uganda, and they're talking to the lawmakers as far as what they were talking about, supposedly about the anti-homosexuality bill, but God knows what they were actually talking about. They can say, look, it doesn't look good, don't do it. I mean, that's probably what they can say. Or I don't know if they were pulling off any threats. I think they could. I mean, the thing is, if the U.S. says, you know what, no more of this, no more aid for Uganda, a lot of things are going to happen. I mean, you're going to have these death squads and these militias get up and do a lot of weird things in Uganda. And guess what's going to happen? They're going to blame it on gay people, obviously. And to me, there's actually no real good solution to this. The only thing that we can pray for is to make sure that this bill doesn't pass. And it's thrown away. Rejected. But the faction, the Ugandan faction, the Ugandan corrupt politicians, what they want is this bill to pass so they can use it against their enemies. Then you have the American Anglo faction, the British and the Americans, who you have the official governmental faction that doesn't want this to pass because of various political reasons, etc. For whatever posturing that they have to do for their countries. But also, you have another faction within the British and with the Americans, some of them even working within the CIA, the Mormon-controlled CIA, who are pushing for this bill to pass. That's why the lawmakers in Uganda are very much confused, because they're receiving two messages from the same entity. Two different contradicting messages. One is saying don't do it, the other one is saying yes, do it. And why are they doing this? Why is the CIA involved? And they are involved in this situation. The State Department is full of these Bush era neocon reactionary Mormons and hardcore Catholics. And what they do is they go to these countries and say, look, we really want to see this happen, and for whatever religious reason, because here's what they're, I think, it is my own theory, but I think it's a valid one, why this faction of religious reactionaries want this to happen. And they're using Senator Inhofe from Oklahoma. He's the one that was spearheaded and thrown into Uganda But he has been directed by the CIA to go to Uganda and be the spokesman for the Senate. That was about in 2003, around there. This faction, though, I mean, I can guess many theories, but one theory that sticks to me right now is that they're saying, look, if we can pass this, which they can, pass this bill, and we can execute all these gays, most of them will not be gay, by the way. They will all be straight people, but they're enemies of the political ruling class of Uganda. And so they execute all these gay people. Yeah, there will be gay people that will be executed. Obviously, yes. And of course, what they're hoping is, and this is what I gather from somebody like Scott Lively, who was interviewed over this about 2 days ago. Scott Lively, who has daily, almost daily contacts with David Bahati and other people in Uganda. Martin Sempa, a reactionary fascist pastor, the one that said that gay people eat the poo-poo. If you remember that famous video, he has daily interactions with Ugandans, and he's saying, "Oh, that Uganda is going to be the model nation of Africa. They're going to get HIV under control. They're going to get the economy under control, and that Uganda," he said, this is his own words, that Uganda is going to be the number one country in the world, and it's going to overpass in power and prominence over the United States of America. That's what he said. That's what he believes. And I just laughed, obviously, when I heard about this, because that is totally asinine. Uganda cannot do that because it has the most corrupt government. It has a dictator of a president. And the people obviously don't have the political will to do anything in that country. Some of them are starving to death. Some of them are dying not of AIDS. People think, oh, well, people in Africa die of AIDS. No, they die of malaria. They die of the common cold. Things that we in America, we just recover from. They can't. But that's what they believe. And what they believe is delusional, because I think that these reactionaries have been taken for a ride by these Ugandan political ruling elite, because they really want this bill to pass. They're telling these Christian Americans and British, they're saying, look, we'll pass it, to encourage you to go back to your country and convince everybody, look, this is what happens when you criminalize homosexuality. I think that's what they're aiming at. What they're aiming at is, once they pass the bill, they're gonna get more involved in the politics of Uganda. They're gonna get more hardcore, reactionary, right-wing, fascist theocracy. I mean, it's gonna be a total theocracy in Uganda after the bill is passed. Uganda will officially become a theocracy, and then after that, there are these religious fanatics from Great Britain and from the U.S. They're gonna come in, and then they're gonna rule the country de facto. They're gonna have to do that, and then impose their plan. And their plan is to basically initiate a prohibitionist society. They're going to prohibit casino gambling, drinking, and anything like that, smoking. They're going to ban all that. And then it's going to become a nationalist, socialist country, like it is already. I mean, but more. It's going to be like Germany under Hitler. And then once they do that, they'll tell people, oh, look how model these Christians in Uganda are. I mean, like, the crime has come down, and society is now strengthened, and there's no more AIDS, there's no more vagrancy, and that's what they believe. They believe this shit. They believe that they can turn countries around. And once they do that, once they convince the world that Uganda is number one, that one of these days Uganda is going to surpass the U.S. in power, then they're going to say, see, if you execute gay people, if you imprison them, this is what happens. Your country becomes successful. And then they can export that from Uganda to other countries. That's what their plan is. That's what I think. I mean, I read a lot of this stuff from Scott Lively, and that's what I get. So, I mean, that's the latest on that issue, but man, I mean, it's you know, it's a lot of things that we have to deal with on this. I mean, there's so much going on. I mean, there's this circle of people around this issue that you're gonna have to know about. The people that want this bill passed and those who don't want it passed, and then there are other groups involved. The Vatican is involved. The Church of England is involved. And what I know is that the Church of England, first of all, gave blessings to this bill. You have to remember that the Church of Uganda is, in fact, the Church of England. It's the Anglican Church. Church of Uganda said, oh yeah, go ahead, pass it please, because that church is basically, it's controlled by the same elite, because the Church of Uganda, just like the Church of England, is subsidized by the state. And also take a look at what Uganda really is. Uganda, it has a British form of government. It has a parliament, and their system of governance is British. In essence, this bill is British, because the theology and the theocracy that is being imposed through the Americans is British. You have the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry involved. The Freemasons are pushing this. And you have, of course, the religious right, who take the same theology, the same Scottish Freemasonry, Dixiecrat, Mormon theology, and then they just wrap it around Jesus, and then they import it into Uganda. And then they convince all of these vulnerable little minded people in Uganda to look, if you stop gay people, your world will be better. And that's why you see all these Ugandans with all these signs and protests, because they've been convinced. And Uganda has a British system. It's a British country, because the British are everywhere still. They control NATO. They control all these other treaty organizations. And it's not David Cameron. I'm not saying that. Again, it's not. I mean, this goes back to the British East Indian Company. If you want to research this even further, they were the ones who were involved in Uganda as well, back in the 1920s. I mean, when they're colonizing, India, colonizing Africa, South America. I mean, they were everywhere. So, a lot of things going on in Uganda, but you might be asking yourself, what can you do to stop this? I don't know. I mean, I guess you can call the embassies, and I don't know. Other people have these ways of looking at it. So I don't know. I guess you're gonna have to pressure Obama to do something. And yes, this is where he needs to intervene. You cannot have a country that is a signatory to the Declaration of Human Rights and do something like that. You can't. And especially if it's an open country like Uganda, it's not like a recluse country like North Korea or Burma or all these other countries. It's an open, trying to be modern Western country. It's like Turkey without the gobble. Oh God! But there you go. That's what I have to say about Uganda, and we'll see what happens with that bill. But I think it's gonna pass. I don't know. I mean, it might pass, it might not. It can go either way. But we will soon find out. They're expecting it to. I don't know. I think it's gonna be delayed more because supposedly, according to the official reports from the embassy, and they have people down there at the parliament, that the bill itself hasn't really passed the committee yet. So that's what they're saying. We'll see what happens.